Welcome back. The U.S. military is ready to use its, quote, full range of capabilities in order to take on North Korea. Great. That is according to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Marine General Joe Dunford, in reaction to the regime's threats to launch a missile strike on Guam. General Dunford made the comments today in South Korea, but also stressed the need for economic and diplomatic pressure against North Korea. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson and Secretary of Defense James Mattis also echoed the calls to pursue diplomacy first. But are we getting past the point of no return? And is nuclear war a real possibility? That sounds pretty horrific. Joining me now is former CIA officer and president of Diligence LLC, Mike Baker. Welcome back, Baker.
Thank you, Kennedy. That does sound pretty horrific.
Of course it does. Now, I've said this before. I'll say it again. No one wants nuclear war. But is there a way of denuclearizing North Korea without military action?
Well, you know who typically wants war least are the people who understand it best and have experience in it. So the military generals, other folks in the military, despite what some folks might think, are the last people that want to actually engage in combat, engage in war, because they really do have an understanding of how horrific it is. What we're seeing now, I mean, the fact that General Dunford, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, is over in South Korea. He's also going to sit down in China and Japan. That is very, very important. And the things that he's saying now were true now. They're true a year ago. They were true 5, 10 years ago. The military is always in a state of perpetual readiness. And they've been gaming this out in terms of the peninsula and potential conflict with North Korea for a long time. Yeah. But on top of that, they always prefer a peaceful diplomatic solution. So he's absolutely right in saying, look, we are working side by side with Rex Tillerson and everyone else in the diplomatic community and within the administration to try to ensure we can try to resolve this.
Yeah. H.R. McMaster, the National Security Advisor, said we're not closer to war than a week ago, but we are closer to war than we were a decade ago. That's interesting.
Yeah, that's North Korea's own doing. That's the fact that they've continued this march to realize their ambitions, which they've been clear about for quite some time over several administrations. So now that's what he's referring to. Look, all this time that we've kicked the can down the road during the previous administrations through sort of this carrot and stick appeasement approach, and then the past 8 years of what they called strategic patience, that's allowed us, unfortunately, to get to this point where, yes, is there more risk at this stage than there were 10 years ago? Of course, because they're pursuing their ambitions, their nuclear weapons.
When Kim Jong-un came to power, when his father passed, was there any sort of a belief that he would be a more rational strategic partner between the West and North Korea? Or did everyone know at that point that he would be more difficult and blustery and use even tougher language and a greater show of force than his dad?
Right, yeah, I don't think anybody's ever put Kim Jong-un and rational in the same sentence. And they certainly didn't do it at that point where there was a transition in power from his father to him. And in fact, it was fairly opaque. There was not a lot of understanding as to his nature, his character, his intentions, his plans, his motivations, nor as to the state of loyalty or between the military leadership there in North Korea and the new leader. So there were a lot of unknowns. There continue to be some unknowns, and that raises an important point, which is, as we're at this inflection point, as we're with these tensions rising, the question has to be asked, to what degree is Kim Jong-un aware of what goes on? To what degree is he aware of the realities that he faces? Because he may be in a bubble to say his military advisors may not be telling him, look, sir, we're nowhere near the top of the food chain here.
I mean, I have a feeling that his iPad, although the rest of his country is starved for information, I have a feeling that his iPad actually they've got Wi-Fi in the palace. What I'm wondering is, what does making such specific threats to Guam get them? I mean, if they're saying where and when they're going to strike, and obviously Guam is a lot closer to them than it is to us, although it is a U.S. territory. It's easier for them to hit Guam than it is Hawaii or the U.S. mainland. But why are they being so specific? What does that get them?
Well, in part, it's because it's within their capabilities as we understand it to this point, because it's not reaching to the U.S. mainland, but it is a U.S. territory. So that may have something to do with it. Look, what they're doing though is consistent with what they've been doing for a long time, which is rattling the cage, and then typically they get something from it, or China gets something from it. And we haven't even talked about that, but this effort has got to involve China, and it's got to involve a much more aggressive approach with them. And one thing that may be important here is China's always looking for what's in it for them. They purely act in their own self-interest.
But
and
they got something for their UN vote. When they voted unanimously with the rest of the Security Council, they got something from us. I say we stop doing that and just don't invite them to the party and make them feel bad.
Yeah, I think we don't want to shut that opportunity off with China. Look, as an example, if China views the trade imbalance as something that they have to worry about right now, if they sincerely believe that President Trump is going to be pushing that button and really exploring the trade imbalance, if they view perhaps as an opportunity that we'll back off of that in exchange for them actually committing to those sanctions, and this is important. In the past, they've always, there's been a lot of backsliding. They've circumvented sanctions, but if they are hard-nosed about those sanctions, North Korea is going to feel it very quickly, as opposed to things in the past. So they may be looking, as they always do, for what's in it for them, and if they feel that that might be an opportunity, then great. We may have a way to get them fully on board and pressuring North Korea. And again, there's an element of hope, and that's usually not a happy thing when you're talking about potential for nuclear conflict, but we have to look at all the options.